Welcome to the Guy Who Knows a Guy podcast. I'm your host, Michael Whitehouse, the guy who knows a guy himself, and we are recording live to tape at Podapalooza number 15. Over the last 5 years, I've had the privilege of meeting and learning from thousands of entrepreneurs, experts, and awesome people. And now I leverage that knowledge to help my clients cut through the junk and focus on just what they need to achieve their goals. And I'm excited to meet one more awesome person. Jessper Maquindang is the owner of Familied Management Consulting. He helps leaders and managers build stronger teams through team building activities, leadership assessments, and executive coaching. So, Jessper, in your own words, what makes you awesome?
Michael, first off, thank you for having me. Very excited for our conversation today. And the sense of awesomeness, I would say it's the willingness to learn, continuous improvement, continuous growth. Because for me, I grew up just being inspired by this idea of leadership. And over the years, I've been trying to find out myself what leadership means to me. And I realize it's that sense of growing and developing, not just a one and done thing, but to be an effective leader, it's continual growth each day and every day. And I'm committed to that growth because that's what I'm passionate about.
I love it. It reminds me of something someone said once that I've used many times, which is that entrepreneurship is applied entrepreneurship is applied personal development. And I think leadership is also applied personal development. So, so tell me more about some of the work you do. You said you work with leaders and managers. Is this in corporations or is this in nonprofits, companies? Who do you work with?
Absolutely. So I enjoy working with the essential organizations such as healthcare, education, finance, technology, because what I've realized is in these fast-paced environments, this sense of teamwork is what really drives innovation. Because when one leader is taking the reins and running with one single idea, if it goes wrong, that's all eggs in one basket, and that can lead to a dangerous situation. On the other hand, when you're giving other people the space to express their voice, be heard, that really gives an opportunity for everyone to share their perspectives. And when you have a lot more perspectives put together, there's just a lot more ways you can really use to move forward instead of putting all your eggs in one basket and hoping for the best. On the other hand, you have everyone's help along your journey.
Hmm. So what are some of the are there new changes in leadership or new challenges in leadership now a quarter of the way into the century? Or is it kind of the same challenges have always been, just new organizations and coming out different ways?
I'd say in recent years, there's a challenge that's been really intensified. And pandemic, we've really seen an increase in the world of remote work and hybrid work. And along the lines, within that time frame, we've seen a higher sense of isolation. And when people feel isolated, there's this sense that there's less engagement, less productivity. But on the other hand, when a leader is more intentional about really helping their team really feel like a team, there's that greater sense of motivation and drive. And when leaders really make that space, they're encouraging their employees, their team members to really grow and develop in that within that sense of belonging, community, togetherness. So it's really a sense of overcoming that isolation when we're looking at this rise of remote work and hybrid work in today's society.
So when it comes to remote and hybrid work, do you think that is a net positive that just needs to be worked with differently, or do you think it's net negative that's making it harder to run organizations?
Excellent question. It can be seen both ways. Positive because there's a greater sense of flexibility. You don't have to, especially when you're living in major metropolitan cities, this commute, you're able to cut down that time and really focus on your work once you head to your desk. And on the other hand, the challenge there is the sense of in-person connection. When we're looking at today's society, pre-pandemic, it was easier for someone to step out of their desk and really go to another cubicle or office and say, Michael, how you doing? How was your weekend? Really would really like to get to know you. Today, it's a little bit different in the virtual world. people have to be more intentional. And actually, I would encourage that intentionality and deliberateness for people to reach out to others, schedule that into your calendar instead of leaving to chance. Because again, in today's world, especially with remote and hybrid, that sense of connection is not the same as it used to be.
Yep. And that's a key thing, that intentional connection. Have you seen examples of it done well with companies that have gone to more of a remote or hybrid structure, still maintaining those connections?
It's really encouraging that flexibility and really giving employees that opportunity to check in and continue to provide ideas. Again, when we're working with our teams, leaving them aside and not checking in with them, not hearing from them, you really don't know what progress is going to look like. On the other hand, when organizations, leaders, and managers are really taking steps to reach out and continually see what progress looks like, and giving employees and their people the opportunity to share new ideas on how they can move forward, that's really going to bring a lot of progress into the work that's being done.
Definitely, yeah. Yeah, I think about some of the organizations, the teams I work with, because we're all remote, we're all, working from home in different states and different countries. So there's no office to go into for us. But I think for a lot of corporations, it may have been a crutch to have everyone in the same building, in the same office. So the manager could feel like, oh, yeah, I see him on his computer. He must be getting work done. Oh, I see him on his computer. He's getting work done. And so didn't have to be organized, or just a thought pops into your head. You walk over, hey, yeah, Bob, could take care of this for me. And when you're online, you have to be more intentional. You have to schedule the meetings. You have to schedule the social interaction. You have to create, whether it's Slack or Discord or WhatsApp, whatever, create the medium for this exchange of ideas, and not just rely on, we happen to be in the room. I saw it with networking groups too, like BNI, a lot of BNI chapters. When they went virtual, BNI should be phenomenal online. It's perfectly set up to work on Zoom, because one person speaks at a time and y'all take turns, and it's perfect for it. And so many chapters said, it's terrible. I hate it. It's not working, because they weren't doing it right in the first place. And you take something broken, you put it online, and you see everything that's broken about it. So have you seen some of that with a management environment where the manager is sort of writing off their lack of management skill to virtual, and so that's why they're trying to pull people back into the office?
That's very interesting. And you brought up an interesting theme, the idea of management by walking around, where someone could really just look outside their office and see, oh, that person A is on their desk, so they're doing their work. Person B is at their desk, so they're doing work. Now, as far as the disconnect, yes, and it really highlights that management, for management to be effective, regardless of the environment or the setting, uh, they still need the right mindset, the right processes, the right structures. So if their in-person management was ineffective in the first place, it's not going to translate well into other environments. And then on the other hand, when managers already have great systems and processes, when it's set to different settings or different environments, it might not be perfect the first time, but since that leader or manager has already made great strides, it's going to be easier to course correct.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel like it's one of the challenges. I mean, I for the most part, I'm allergic to corporate, so I try to stay out of it. But the sense I get from it is that a lot of them don't have clear goals. They don't have clear. So they'll take an employee and they'll say, work on this, work on this, work on this, instead of, your job is, by Thursday, I need this project completed, whatever it takes, get it done. Here's the criteria, because that takes work to plan ahead and figure it out. Instead, they say, okay, yeah, create this landing page. Okay, create this web page. Okay, create this email sequence. And they have no idea what the big picture is. So the employee then can't say, well, what if we did it in the other order, and then we could reuse this, because they don't know what they're doing. But if you can just poke your head out the door and be like, hey, how's that website coming? Good. Okay. But then you go to online, all of a sudden you're like, I don't know what anyone's doing, which, ask them. So what do you find are the best practices, like the people who did transition well? What was the key to their success?
Absolutely. So the key to success was really understanding and being aware of their own leadership style,
Hmm.
and then being aware of the other needs and uh, experiences, skills of the people they work with. That way, when they did transition into a different environment, they were ready to adapt, knowing how they could work and how they could work together. And just having this knowledge of really taking your leadership and the skills and uh, experience that you've had as a leader that's made you effective, using those same principles and applying that uh, again in different places, uh, that'll transition better rather than someone who, let's say a leader, let's call him Imaginary John. He had no idea what he was doing in the first place, and he had never taken the time to really understand what his role was. Of course, if you bring him to a remote or hybrid environment, he's still going to have no idea what he's doing, and vice versa, from remote to in person. Either way, if Imaginary John had taken the time to develop his leadership skills, keep learning, find ways to become better at what he does, then regardless, I mean, it's not going to be perfect the first time if he decides to move to a different area, but it'll be easier for him to find his footing as he moves forward instead of being completely lost in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah. So I know one of the challenges is I believe they call it the Peter principle, that people are, promoted to their level of incompetence. And this, we're talking about this for decades. Do you find that now there's more awareness of that? Companies are better about training their managers as they make the managers? Or is this problem getting worse because they're trying to save money, or a little bit of both? What are you seeing right now in the industry in terms of managers being trained in this very unique skill of management?
Yes, very unique. The Peter Principle, and it states that people really rise. Essentially, people rise to the level of their failure.
Hmm.
And when it comes to the Peter Principle, it's essentially all over the place. When organizations invest in the learning, into the development of their leaders, those people really have a better chance of thriving in their roles. On the other hand, when organizations make budget cuts and don't include training development as part of their livelihood, that's where you'll see challenges where leaders are in a sink or swim situation. And if there's no investment in continual learning, they're going to sink, and it's going to just create challenges for them to really be effective in what they do and how they can serve their organization.
Hmm. And are you seeing this? Do you think there's more awareness now in the need for investing in management?
I would say generally yes, because the value of leadership development, we're seeing more of a return on investment,
Mhm.
because when leaders are getting trained up and sharpened in their skills and what they can do, then yes, there is an opportunity for them to get better. On the other hand, if it's not a priority, of course, these leaders are going to sink, and it's going to be difficult for them to really move forward with the organization.
Now, so how would these concepts apply to entrepreneurs, solopreneurs, us working out of our basements on the internet? Um, yeah, do these apply, or are these just corporate concepts?
Oh, these absolutely apply to solopreneurs and entrepreneurs, because when it comes to learning and development, when a solopreneur or entrepreneur does not really take the time to understand the ins and outs of not only their business but themselves, that could create more challenges in really understanding what to do next. On the other hand, if if an entrepreneur really overcomes that Peter principle and really applies more knowledge, development, and that growth, there's just a better opportunity for that entrepreneur to do greater things.
That makes a lot of sense, and I imagine this also applies with how they manage their teams as well, because a lot of them don't have 9 to 5 teams, but they have contractors and have to be a lot more cognizant of wasting their time. Um, I don't remember who it was. I remember there was some speakers talking about the fact that anytime there's a meeting, he has the managers calculate what that meeting costs. So what is the hourly rate of the people in that room, and how long is it going to be? And, because if you got someone making $100,000 a year, then they're at, what's 100,000, $50 an hour, I think. And so, if it's going to be an hour and there's 10 people in the meeting, well, then that's a $500 meeting. Is that worth $500 to have that meeting? Or could you have let some of the people keep working? And, applying this, and this is a company where, upper management, where these people are making $100, $200, $300 an hour. So he'd look at some of these meetings and say, this meeting costs $4,700 and I want a 10x return on everything we do. So is this meeting going to make us $47,000? No, go back to your desks. We're not having this meeting because, so many people, they end up being bogged down in meetings and can't get anything done because doing it. But if you have a contractor and they're there for an hour for the meeting, you're paying them. If their hourly rate's $100, you're actually writing them a check for $100 for that meeting. You learn to get a lot more efficient with meetings.
That's right. That's an excellent perspective because when it comes to meeting, based on my experience, I've seen so many where it's just status report. Oh, Jessper, what are you doing? Great. And then move to the next meeting. Jessper, what's your progress on this task? Great. For meetings to be effective, it should really focus on the purpose and really what the outcomes they want in the projects that they're working with. Because again, if it's just status updates, you're really just checking in and you're paying people just to see what they're doing. On the other hand, if you're looking at the overall big picture that you're striving for and seeing how close you are to getting there, that's where a meeting makes a lot more value in terms of what it can provide to the team.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, one of my clients, there is an all hands meeting 30 minutes once a month. And that all hands meeting is reporting, here's where we are with our goals, and here's where the company is, and here's big picture kind of stuff. Sometimes it's stuff that we don't necessarily need to know, but hey, you guys want to see our marketing numbers for our last launch? We're like, yeah, you want to see it. And we don't need to know that stuff, but it's really cool to see that stuff. And then you feel like you're like, ooh, I was part of that. And so it kind of shares the bigger picture. But that's again, anything else is the people who need to be there are there, and otherwise, everyone else is out of it. Because you're not paying someone just for being in the office, which is very, very powerful. So what are, besides remote and remote hybrid, home in the office, all that, what else are you seeing on the horizon that's affecting management both in entrepreneurship and in corporate?
Absolutely. And it's the rise of artificial intelligence and its impact on leadership and management. And I would say that artificial intelligence, it does have amazing capacity and capabilities, but I don't believe it's going to replace effective leaders because when it comes to artificial intelligence, what it depends on is prompting. And when it comes to prompting, artificial intelligence is only as intelligent as the person using it.
Yep.
So if you have a 9-year-old asking for a golden table, a picture of golden table, that's all you're really going to get, a picture of a golden table.
Yep.
On the other hand, that same thing applies to leaders. If a leader says, what day should I pack a brown bag of lunch? Again, based on prompting, that's the only result you're going to get. But for a leader to really be effective, it's to really understand what they're striving for. Because when it comes to prompting, unless a leader really knows how to effectively find a sort of programming or understanding that really elevates their team, that's only really when artificial intelligence is really going to be that effective. Again, when it comes to artificial intelligence, it's only as good as the prompting as the person applying it. So as far as replacing leadership, it's not there yet because effective leaders have a certain way of looking at things.
Yeah, that makes sense. I was talking to someone recently who was saying that with their company, it was a tech company, and they'd replaced most of their coders with technology, but there's basically a team of prompters. So it was a team of managers, and the managers would manage the AI and say, I need this built, and they would have to give the good instructions. And so What they really needed was really good leaders, managers who knew what they wanted so they could ask for it, because they couldn't just throw sloppy instructions at the staff and have them clean it up, because so it needs people who can manage the machines. But it's replacing the people who are actually doing the work, and it's just managing those. So I definitely see that trend occurring. And so what do you see happening with the people who were in those jobs who are now no longer there because the AI is doing that work for them?
That's right, because AI, especially how it's progressing, it's been able to automate certain things. But at the same time, if we look at the history of work, automation has been around in some form or another. So it's really a case of upgrading your skills to stay ahead of the game. And that's true for the past 200 years of work.
Yeah.
Uh, it's really when a new technology presents itself, it doesn't necessarily eliminate jobs. It just readapts how society works. So, for example, in the 1970s, when Xerox came out, people had the fear, oh my gosh, it's going to replace so many admin jobs because the printer is going to print things for us. Well, in reality, although it kind of offset those certain admin jobs, at the same time, it created a new workforce of technology technicians who can work on either upgrading or maintaining these printer systems. So again, it does not necessarily disrupt, it just adjusts how society works.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, so this has been interesting talking about, different concepts of leadership and management, how it applies to different spaces. So if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Absolutely. Feel free to visit me on my website. It's familyconsulting.com. And you can also reach out to me on LinkedIn. I absolutely love conversations about leadership, personal growth, professional development, team building, workplace culture, you name it. Feel free to reach out. I love to have those types of conversations.
Awesome. That's Familied, like FAMI as in family, lead consulting.com. And what's your closing thought?
And I would say, overall, especially in today's world, to be an effective leader, embrace the idea of connection and belonging, because as we've seen in recent years, this sense of isolation, for people to feel a greater sense of productivity, engagement, and motivation, especially in the workplace, is to be more intentional about reaching out to people and making them feel as part of your team.
Great. Well, thank you, Jessper, for being a part of this. It's been awesome. Your final interview for Podapalooza. So it's been a great day, and I appreciate you being a part of it.
Thank you, Michael. It was great to be here today.